أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن
بسم
الرحيم.
الله الرحمن الرحيم. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. In yesterday's presentation, we looked at Umrah. We looked at the beginning of how to put on your ihram, and we looked at the summary of Umrah. So in this particular program today, inshallah, we will continue by looking at Umrah, how to perform the Umrah, and thereafterwards how to do the Hajj. Now, this Umrah Tawaf, because as I mentioned before, there are three categories of Hajj. One of them is Tamattu Hajj, the other category is called Qiran. And as I said, many of the brothers or sisters who go for Hajj, they either do the Tamattu Hajj or they either do the Qiran Hajj. So this presentation which we're going to look at here is going to be centered around those two categories of Hajj. Now, the Tawaf-e-Umrah, it consists of the following things. That you do Tawaf around the Kaaba. So when you do Tawaf, you have to be anti-clockwise with the Kaaba on your left. So you do Tawaf 7 times. Then there are two things which are called Istiba and Ramal. Now Istiba basically means that the ihram garment, the chadar, the rida which you put on top, you leave your right shoulder exposed. So what you do is that you cover your left shoulder, and then the right hand side, you then put it below your right armpit and you leave the right shoulder exposed, and then that right hand side part of the chadar and the shawl, you put it over your left shoulder. So that is called Istiba. And Istiba, as you can see, is something which you do throughout the 7 rounds of Tawaf. So the whole Tawaf, the 7 times which you do it, so all around you will do the Istiba. And the last point which is mentioned here is with regards to Ramal. Now Ramal basically means to walk in a strong and in a quick way, like a marching way, like soldiers do. So to walk like that whilst performing the first 3 rounds. As you can see at the bottom, the bullet points say in the first 3 rounds. So in the first 3 chakras you do this Ramal. Now why do we do the Ramal? It's mentioned in the hadith that the pagans of Makkah, they kind of taunted the Muslims. They said that, the Muslims, they migrated to Medina Munawwara, they've now become weak, they've now become kamzor. So when they are doing tawaf, it's going to be very difficult for them. So therefore, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to strike fear into the pagans of Makkah, he ordered the companions that march like this when you do the Ramal, so that it brings or it builds this kind of fear in their hearts. So this is why it's called Ramal. Now remember, Ramal you only do it in the first 3 rounds. So what does that mean? Just say, for example, if somebody did 3 rounds of Tawaf and then he remembered, I haven't done Ramal. So in that situation, he won't do Ramal for rounds 4, 5 and 6. But in that situation, wo usko chhod dega, because Ramal, these things are sunnah. So if you did miss it out, then there is no dam for missing it out. It's sunnah, but obviously you should try your best to do it. Now the next slide which we have in front of us is with regards to the black stone and what we call in Arabic istilah. Now this is also the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that every tawaf you start by trying your best to kiss this black stone, or the very least you do something which is called in Arabic istilah, which means that you gesture the act of kissing the black stone. And this is obviously more important in this day and age where there are a lot of people around the black stone, so it's very difficult to go there and touch it. So therefore what you may need to do is from afar, you may need to gesture the act of kissing the black stone. Now what is the khulasa, what is the conclusion of this particular masla ruling? The masla ruling is that if there is no bees, if there is no crowd, what you should do is that you should try to go to this black stone, put your hand inside the black stone, not on the actual silver, the silver round. That silver came afterwards. The actual sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was he put his hand on the actual black stone and then he will kiss between his two hands. If that is not possible because there's too many people there, then what you should do is that touch the black stone with your hand, your right hand, left hand, depending on what side of the Kaaba you're at. So you then touch it and then you kiss your hand like this. Or if that is not possible, if you can't get close to the black stone, then as I've written there, you get a stick and then you use the stick to then touch the black stone and then you kiss the stick instead. But I said these three things are going to be very difficult in this day and age, too many people there, and obviously if you are going to go to kiss the black stone, then what happens is that there's always like, you'll be pushing people around, and this is something which you should not be doing, giving taklif and pain to the Muslim brothers and sisters. So what you should do is from afar, move or place your hands forward and think as though that you were placing your hand on the black stone. So from afar, you assume that the black stone is in front of me, you place your hands like this and then you kiss in between. So that is called istilam. So basically what I'm trying to say is that you gesture the act of kissing the black stone from afar. And as I've written at the bottom here, that you should do this for every circuit and for every chakkar you do. So basically what happens is that all together you'll be making istilam of the black stone 8 times. Why 8 times? Because you do one at the beginning of each circuit, and after you finish the 7th circuit or the 7th chakkar, then you finish off by doing another istilam and another gesturing of the act of kissing towards the black stone. So in total you will get 8 istilams and 8 gesturing towards the black stone. Now this is a map of the Kaaba and the Baytullah. So I'll just mention, as I've already explained before, so I'll just mention where you start the tawaf from and where you end it. Okay. Now, as we can see from the picture or the diagram which is in front of us, you start your tawaf from the black stone. So as you can see, start line. So start line of the tawaf and the finishing line is also the black stone and the Hajr Aswad. So what you'll do is that you'll make your way towards the black stone, and you don't get worried because there's always signs there. Even in English, in Urdu, it's written the sign that this is the black stone or this is the beginning of tawaf and end of tawaf. So even if you can't read Arabic, there's signs in English, in Urdu, telling you that this is where you start your tawaf from. Now what will happen is that you will make your way towards the start line. You will then, as I said before, if it's possible, try to kiss the black stone. If that is not possible, then, as I mentioned, from afar you will gesture the act of kissing known as istilam. And then you will start from here, and then you will do tawaf around the Baytullah 7 times. We'll come back to these 3 corners later, but just for your own information, when you pass this corner, Rukne Iraqi, and when you pass this particular corner, Rukne Shami, or in the Shami corner, you don't do anything to it. You don't kiss it or anything like that. Just leave it as it is. Remember that you don't cut across here. You have to go around the Hatim and the Hijrat Ismail. And then when you come to the Yemeni corner, then if it's possible, then you should touch it. But if that is not possible, then you should just pass without kissing or anything like that. You're not allowed to kiss the Rukne Yamani. The only thing which is established from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that he would touch it, and if that is not possible because of too many people there, then you should pass without doing any istilam or without doing the gesture of kissing towards the Yemeni corner. Now, a question arises here is that why is it that we do the istilam of the black stone, we touch the Rukne Yamani, the Yemeni corner, but these 2 corners we just leave it as it is? Now the main reason why is that when Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam constructed the Baytullah, these two corners were the asli corner, was the original corners. Them two, the Iraqi corner, the Shami corner, they came out afterwards. But when Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam constructed the Baytullah, it was just constructed with these two corners, the black stone corner and the Rukn Yamani corner. Hence, it's only established that we are going to kiss when it comes to the black stone corner and touch the Rukn Yamani, and the other two corners we leave it as it is. Okay, the next slide here talks about the Hatim, as I've already mentioned. I mentioned in yesterday's presentation that Hatim, this area, is mentioned in Hadith that 70,000 prophets, qabr and grave is in that particular area. Also the grave of Sayyidina Ismail alayhi salam and Sayyida Hajira are also inside this particular area as well. Now when you do tawaf, you can't cut and go in between. If it's possible, it's mentioned in the hadith of Tirmidhi that you should try to pray 2 rakat nafil salah there if it's possible. But if it's not possible, too many people there as you can see, then you should leave it as it is. But important thing regarding this is that you're not allowed to cut across in between and do your tawaf. If somebody did it, and as you can see from the slide and the notes which are given, is that your tawaf will become void and invalid. Okay, now the next few slides, inshallah, I'm just going to mention some rulings with regards to tawaf. The first ruling here is that you don't have to say your intention out aloud when it comes to beginning the tawaf. Remember, tawaf is an ibadah, so you have to make an intention, whether you're doing tawaf umrah, tawaf qudum, whether it's tawaf ziyarah, you need to make intention, but you don't have to say it verbally. If you make the intention in your heart, then that is sufficient. Very similar to namaz and salah. You don't have to say the intention out verbally or loudly. If you have the intention in your heart, then that would be sufficient. The second point here is that a state of wudu is required for all kinds of tawaf. Which means that when you perform the tawaf, all types, whether it's nafil tawaf, tawaf ziyarah, then it is required, and obviously in the case of tawaf ziyarah and tawaf umrah, it's wajib, that you perform these tawaf in the state of wudu. To the extent that if you didn't, then the tawaf will be done, but you will have to give a dam and a penalty. So it is, and for the other tawaf, like nafil tawaf and so on, then it's highly recommended, and it is a sunnah that you do it in the state of wudu. And the third point which is mentioned here is that any tawaf which you do, whether it's a nafil tawaf, then for that tawaf to be considered valid or for it to be considered rewardable, you have to do 7 rounds. You can't just say, okay, I got 10 minutes before namaz, I'll just do 1 round, I'll get tawaf for that. No, for that to be considered as tawaf and rewardable, then you have to do 7 circuits. Similarly, in this particular slide, again, some more rulings with regards to tawaf. It says that continue tawaf without any interruption. Meaning that when you do the tawaf, then you shouldn't like do 3 and then go for a toilet break, or do 2 and then go and eat and then come back. Do all 7 altogether. The next point then goes on to say that when it is time for the obligatory salah, you should stop your tawaf, join the salah in your place, and then resume your tawaf from where you left. So this is very important regarding namaz, because sometimes it happens is that you're doing tawaf and then the iqamat for salah goes. Zuhr salah, asr salah, even fajr and so on. So in that situation, just say you've done 3 tawafs or 3 rounds or 4 rounds, and then the muazzin is giving iqamat or the muazzin is giving azan. So in that situation, you just stop where you are, read your salah, and then afterwards continue with the tawaf. The sunnahs of that particular salah you have to read it probably afterwards, because obviously as soon as the farz finishes, then as you know, people will just like get ready and will want to do your tawaf again. So if you pray your sunnah, then most likely you may be like squashed and crushed there. So obviously what you do is that you just continue with the tawaf straight away after the farz, and then pray your sunnahs and your nafils later. The third bullet point then goes on to say regarding if you went for a toilet break or a bathroom break whilst doing the tawaf, then some scholars have said that you can continue with where you left off from before you went for the toilet break. So just say for example, you did 3 tawafs, 3 circuits, and then your wuzu broke, or just say for example, you then needed the toilet very desperately. So in that situation you went, then when you come back, then there's 2 opinions. One opinion says that you can continue from where you left off with. So you don't have to start the tawaf all over again. Just continue from tawaf number 4, 5, 6, 7. And the second opinion is that no, it's best that you start all over again. So there's like 2 opinions. Obviously the most ihtiyat and cautious one will be the second opinion, and that is that you start your tawaf all over again, because there's actually differences of opinions regarding this ruling. So the safer option will be that you just start the tawaf all over again. And the last reading that goes on to say that the Kaaba should be on your left when you're doing the tawaf, or you should be done anti-clockwise. So as I explained, that the Kaaba is here, then you go around this way and not the other way around. Again, the next set of rulings, this has got to do more with the black stone, that you don't have to touch the black stone for your tawaf to be accepted. Meaning this is mainly for people who are going Hajj for the very first time, is that they think that, oh, I need to touch the black stone, otherwise my tawaf is not going to be accepted. As I mentioned before, that is not necessary. As long as you've done the istilam and you gestured from afar, then that is sufficient. So, and even if you did miss out the istilam, at the end of the day, it's sunnah to do it. So you don't have to give any penalty or any kind of dam. Also, the second bullet point goes on to say that do not hurt anyone to kiss the black stone. Don't give taklif to anyone. Some people think that, I have to kiss the black stones. What they do, especially the youngsters, they push everyone, men, women in between, they go there and they just try to kiss it. Even there, near the black stone, they'll push people, they'll, even hit people so that they could go and kiss the black stone. That is totally wrong. The sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is that you should not give any taklif and any iza or any kind of pain to another Muslim brother. So what do some people do? Go there and hurt people and try to kiss the black stone? Totally against the sunnah. And also another very important ruling which is mentioned here, do not stand at the black stone for a long time. What does that mean? Sometimes what happens is that the black stone line, so some people, they're not there, but from afar they're doing istilam. But what they do is, just say the black stone's here, what they do is they'll stand on the line and then they'll do the istilam, they will do dua, they'll get a dua book out and start reading the dua book and so on. Now what happens in that situation is that if you're just going to stand there, you're going to clog all this space up. Because remember, when people are doing tawaf, it's like continuously people are coming around. It's like a cycle, it's like a river flowing water. It's always continuously coming. So that if you're going to stop there and you're going to open a book and start reading a dua, or you're going to take there a long time doing dua and so on, what's going to happen? People are going to come from this side and they're going to start squashing into you. And this causes a lot of accidents, a lot of problems. So this is very important ruling. Don't block that area. Okay, don't just stop there and just like get a dua book and start reading dua for 10-15 minutes, because people are just going to get, it's going to cause a, you could say like a human traffic jam, congestion around the area, and that kind of leads to a lot of accidents, people slipping, tripping, and then, people falling and so on. So this is very important that you don't clog that particular area. Okay, as I mentioned that you do not touch the Shami or the Iraqi corners. Do not kiss the Yemeni corner, the Rukn Yamani, but you can touch it, as I've already explained. And the next slide then tells us that there is no particular dhikr for tawaf. Meaning that when you are performing tawaf, there isn't a particular dua or a dhikr to read. And again, this highlighted especially for brothers who are going for the first time. Because what happens, they get the dua book and they're reading dua and they're doing tawaf. And they're not looking what's happening. And this is very important because this kind of behavior causes a lot of accident, because you're just looking and you're just like looking at the dua book, you're just reading, you're not looking who's pushing, what's happening and so on. Sometimes then somebody from the other side may come and push you and then you fall and so on, and it causes a lot of accidents. So it's very important that there is no particular dhikr. You don't have to look at a particular dua book and do your tawaf. But you can read the Quran. So during tawaf, it's a good time to read Quran and so on. If you obviously know, say, Surah Yasin, you could recite Surah Yasin. If not, then small surahs, which I'm sure you know, like Surah Ikhlas, Inna A'tayna, Alam Tara, or whatever you know from the Holy Quran by heart, Surah Fatiha, then you recite it during that particular time. And it goes on to say that make dua by yourself do not do it in a shouting group. Meaning that during tawaf, when you, any dua, any supplication, again, it can be made in your own language. Take this opportunity. Why? Because dua is accepted. But don't do the dua in a shouting group. What I mean by that, you get people from other countries that when they do the tawaf, there will be someone, the leader, he will say a dua loudly, shoutingly. And then people behind him will then shout at that particular dua. And it kind of goes, and they do that for the whole tawaf. Now, obviously, what happens in that case when people are shouting the dua, it kind of causes like confusion for you, disturbs you when you are reading and so on. So that should not be done, or that should be refrained from. Okay, the next ruling here is Maqam Ibrahim. Now, it says that after you finish the 7th round, so after you're in the Saat Chakkar and so on, then you should cover your right shoulder. Because as I mentioned before that you will be doing istiba. So you cover your right shoulder, and then you go to the Maqam Ibrahim. Now, Maqam Ibrahim is, as I explained yesterday, is that place where Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam stood to construct the Baytullah, and the footprints is still on that stone, and you can see when you look through the Maqam Ibrahim. Now, it is sunnah that you try to pray the 2 rakat nafil salah like these two people are doing here, i.e. behind the Maqam Ibrahim. So basically meaning that having the Maqam Ibrahim between yourself and the Baytullah. So that is the sunnah. And he says that it's sunnah that you recite Surah Kafirun and Surah Ikhlas. But as you can see from the paragraph at the bottom, this is virtually impossible during the Hajj season. Meaning, so many people, if you try to pray Nafal Salah there, Salatul Tawaf there, they're going to trample over you, crush you and so on. So that's impossible. So in that situation, whenever you pray in the masjid, then that would be allowed. This Salah which we are praying, by the way, it's actually wajib. This is called Salatul Tawaf. After you do Tawaf, any Tawaf this is, whether it's Nafal Tawaf, Farz Tawaf, Umrah Tawaf, Tawaf-e-Qudum, Tawaf-e-Ziyarah, any Tawaf you do, Tawaf-e-Wida, then afterwards you have to pray 2 rakats. 2 rakats, and that is wajib to pray. Okay. This is a slide picture of Zamzam, the well of Zamzam. So he mentioned after you do your Tawaf, then you should go and try to drink the water from Zamzam. Obviously nowadays the well isn't there, it's closed, but obviously they have sinks around, and they have coolers all over the masjid where you should go there and drink the Zamzam water to your fill. Now after you've done your Tawaf, there's something else which is also wajib but important, and we call that in Arabic sa'i. Now sa'i literally means to run, to hasten, to walk. And what we do is that we hasten and we walk between Mount Safa and Mount Marwa. Now why do we do this? We do this because Sayyiduna Ismail alayhi salam's mother, Sayyidah Hajra, when she was looking for some water, so she ran from Safa to Marwa, Marwa to Safa, as you know the story. So we're following that particular sunnah, or we're remembering that particular effort and sacrifice which Sayyiduna Ismail alayhi salam's mother went through. Now what happened is that, this is a very old picture by the way, it's not like that anymore. You climb the Safa mountain, and then it's mentioned at the bottom that you should then look towards the Baytullah. But it's going to be difficult, why? Because of all the construction there. But what you should do, try to then face towards the Qibla. You should then say Allahu Akbar, you should raise your hands, do dua, do some tasbih, tahleel, make duas. And remember, places like climbing Mount Safa and making dua, these are places where duas are accepted. So you should do dua, and then afterwards you should then descend down or come down Mount Safa and then make your way towards Mount Marwa. And this is further start from the next slide when you look at it. So these are the pilgrims. Okay, so they are now walking towards Mount Marwa. Now as you can see in that picture, there are 2 green lights, the Milayn Aqdarayn. This light here, and then there's another green light. Now in that particular area, or in that particular gap, what you should do only for men only is that you should jog or do a quick running, a quick pacing. Remember, only men will do it and not women. So women, they will walk normal, but men, they will just quickly hasten that particular area. Now, it doesn't mean that you run really fast, like, and so on. You just like jogging. And sometimes, especially when it's on the 10th of Zulhijjah, when you do your tawaf in Ziyarah, there's so many people, so even like jogging is difficult. You just have to walk in that particular area. But what you should do is that you should try to jog in that particular area. And also I said it has to be, even like a small or a slight jog, that's okay. So sometimes you may be with your family, your wife, your sister, your mother. So obviously if you're going to quickly jog, then your sister, they're going to be behind. So in that situation, if you like slowly jog like this, and your women folk, your sister, your wife, then slowly, then that is okay. And then at the bottom I've written that do upon Marwa as you did upon Safa, and that forms one complete lap, meaning that then you climb up Mount Marwa, then you try to face towards the Baytullah, towards Qibla, you raise your hand, you do dua, you supplicate to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then that will be considered as one run. Very important. Sometimes people think that Safa to Marwa and then Marwa to Safa, that is one run, one chakra. No, one circuit is from Safa to Marwa. So because you're doing 7 circuits, so that will mean that you start at Mount Safa and then you'll finish, inshallah, at Mount Marwa. Now after you've done that, so alhamdulillah, we've done the tawaf, we've done the sa'i. Now, if you are doing Hajj tamattu, where, as I explained yesterday in detail, that after you've done the tawaf and the sa'i, you then shave your hair and then you release yourself from the ihram, meaning that you are now able to take off your ihram, things which were unlawful before, i.e. like fragrance, khushbu, attar, scent, these kind of things, soap, shampoo, which were not allowed before, these things will now become permissible. Silah wa kapra, i.e. sewn clothing which you weren't allowed to wear before, qameez, your shirt, so on and so forth, all these things will be allowed and permissible for you to wear. So this is what you will do. You just mentioned that you will then go to the barber shops around Marwa or around some places, and then you will then shave and trim your hair. On the second bullet point, it then tells us about women. What will women do is that women will trim their hair the length of a finger joint. Now what does that mean? Women, as you know, they're not allowed to shave their head. So what they do is that their long hair, you will get, well, either you will get it, the husband or someone of the mahram, they will get one, you wrap your finger around their hair once. So just say, for example, if we were to take this curtain here, so just imagine that this is their long hair. So what would they do is that you get one finger, you put it at the bottom, and then you wrap it once like this. And then after wrapping it once, you get the scissors, and then you cut that. So that's how women will become halal and lawful from there, or release themselves from the ihram. So that concludes the Umrah. Now this takes on to the next part of the presentation, and that is the days of Hajj. So I've got some got a map here regarding where everything is, where we will be. The white patch which you can see at the top of the picture, that is Mina. That white patch is the tents of Mina. So that's like a bird's eye view. So these are all Mina, Muzdalifah, Arafah. These are the places where a person will have to go. Okay, now the days of Hajj starts from the 8th of Zulhijjah. Now just to make it easy, 10th of Zulhijjah is Eid Day, is Eid al-Adha. So 2 days before, that's when the days of Hajj start, or that's when the Hajj preparation starts. Now, as far as I know, again, I may be wrong here, but 10th of November, as far as I know, will be the Eid al-Adha, will be the first day of Eid. So that makes it that on the 8th of November, that will be the first day of Hajj. So we'll just go according to that particular calendar. The 8th of November is the first day of Hajj. Now on the 8th of November, first day of Hajj, in the morning, people will go to Mina. So in the morning here means like you pray your Fajr first in Makkah, and then afterwards people, they will put on their ihram clothes, because remember, if you are doing Hajj tamattu, you need to then make an intention again of ihram. So you then put on your ihram clothes, You then make an intention of performing Hajj, and then you recite the Talbiyah, Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik. And if you are doing Qiran Hajj, then you're already in the state of Ihram. So on the 8th of November, Fajr you pray in the Haram. Thereafter, you make your way towards Mina. Mina is around 3 to 4 miles away. Now in Mina, so in the first day, 8th of Zulhijjah, in Mina there's nothing specific to do. There's no particular ritual. But instead what you will do is that you will stay there for 5 prayers. So you pray 5 prayers in the tent. So obviously you'll be allocated a particular tent, and in the tent you'll pray your Zuhr, Asr, Maghrib, Isha, and the next day's Fajr. Okay? So what I mean is that on the first day there's no particular कोई खास जो है वो rituals वगैरह नहीं है, like you do on the 9th or on the 10th where you go for Rami. Nothing like that. You just like basically stay in the tent. Obviously take this time for ibadat and worship, dua, zikr, these kind of things. Take that opportunity, but there is no particular khas ibadah during that particular time. Now at the bottom is a very important masla. People always ask this, is that in Mina, are we a musafir or not? As you know that those who are musafir, Zuhr, Asr and Isha, you pray 2 rakats. So in Mina, are you a musafir or not? Now the ruling is that it depends on whether, like when you arrive in Makkah, or before you arrived in Mina, have you been in Makkah for 15 days or more? Okay. So if, say for example, 8th of November, we're going to go to Mina for the first day of Hajj. Now if you've arrived in Makkah on 1st of November, then you've only been there for 8 days. So you're not a mukim, you're still a musafir. Hence when you go to Mina, you pray 2 rakats Zuhr, 2 rakats Asr, and 2 rakats Isha. Maghrib 3 rakats will remain the same, Fajr 2 rakats will remain the same. However, if you've been in Makkah for more than 15 days, 15, 16, 17 days, then you're making your way towards Mina, then in that situation you are a mukim in Mina, hence you will have to pray 4 rakats for Zuhr, 4 rakats for Asr, and 4 rakats for Isha. So that's how you will do. Again, it's like another picture of Mina. The boundaries are marked out so you know where it is. This is like inside view. Again, this is for brothers who are going Hajj for the very first time. Inside view of the tent in Mina. So this is how they look. It's nicely decorated and so on. There's like electricity supply, so no worries about charging your mobile phone and so on. Again, this is a picture of Arafah, which is the next place which we're going to go. Okay, now, as I was saying that the 8th of Zulhijjah, you're in Mina, and also the 9th of Zulhijjah, which is in our example 9th of November, Fajr you pray in Mina. So in the 10th in Mina you pray the Fajr. Thereafterwards, you then make your way towards Arafah. Now remember, going to Arafah is a very, very important part of Hajj. Because if you were to miss your Arafah, then your Hajj is going to be invalid. As mentioned in the Hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Al-Hajju Arafah. So if you miss your Arafah, that's it, your Hajj is gone. Now what happens is that after you pray your Fajr, you will then make your way towards Arafah. Those people who are young and so on, you see them, they'll walk towards Arafah, it's not that far. But those who are quite weak and so on, then they will have to get on the coach and the bus, and that will take you towards Arafah. Obviously, if you are traveling with women, sisters, wives and so on, then you probably take the coach and the bus. Now in Arafah, you will pray your Zuhr and your Asr Salah. So in the 10th at Arafah, you will pray your Zuhr and Asr. Now I've mentioned here, would you combine your prayers? Again, another kind of ikhtilaf which happens in Arafah. The reason I'm saying this is that, because remember, when you're in Hajj, you shouldn't be having arguments or disputes with anyone. And I mentioned before in Mina, sometimes disputes happen about, are we musafir or are we mukim? Someone will say, oh well, my Maulana Sahib said, or my Imam said, oh we are musafir, so we have to pray 2 rakats. Another one will say that, oh my Imam Sahib said, no, we mukim, we have to pray 4 rakats. So just like that, they get into an argument, they get into a fight. However, as you know, in the state of Ihram, in Hajj, you're not supposed to get into fights and arguments. People just on these issues will get into argument. So I'm telling you the masla so you know that what exactly is. इसी तरह यहाँ in Arafah, do you combine your prayers, Zuhur or Asr? Do you read them together during Zuhur time? Again, the ikhtilaf will happen there. Some will say, no, you pray Zuhur in Zuhur time, Asr in Asr time. Others will say, no, you pray your Zuhur and Asr together. Now, in the Hanafi fiqh, according to the Mazhab of Imam Abu Hanif rahimahullah, he says that, look, if you are praying the Zuhur Salah and the Asr Salah in a masjid called Masjid al-Namira, which is in Arafah, and you are praying behind the Imam or the Amir of the Hajj, then you will combine your Zuhur and your Asr. However, if you are praying in your tent, as many of us would be, because Masjid al-Namira is a bit far away, but there's so many people there, and it's difficult to get space and so on. So in that situation, many people tend to stay back in the tent and do their Salah. So in that situation, you will pray your Zuhur during Zuhur time and Asr in Asr time. So you don't combine your Salah. Okay, again, these are just pictures of Arafah. You then do your wukuf and so on. Now you'll be Arafah. You don't actually spend the night there. You're in Arafah for basically the daylight hours of the day. So remember, your 9th of Zulhijjah. So according to the calendar, will be say 9th of November. So you're in Arafah, say during the day part. Now in the evening, when it gets dark, Maghrib time, sunset time, you then leave Arafah and you then make your way towards Muzdalifah. Now remember, you don't pray your Maghrib in Arafah. You go all the way to Muzdalifah, and then during Isha time, you pray your Maghrib and Isha together. This is very important. Sometimes what could happen, there could be a delay. So you're still remaining back in Arafah. Even then, in the tent, you don't pray your Maghrib. You don't pray your Maghrib. You just stay there. When you go to Muzdalifah, even if you go to Muzdalifah early, and there's still some time left of Maghrib, you don't pray your Maghrib. You'll wait until the Isha time comes, and then during the Isha time, you will pray your Maghrib and Isha together. So this is what you do. Okay, and then this particular slide tells us where is Muzdalifah and which part. Okay. Now, as you can see, that first bullet point, that when reaching Muzdalifah, pray Maghrib, then Isha, and joining the two prayers. When we say joining the two prayers, we say that we do them in the same time. You do not pray anything between them, meaning there's no sunnah in between them. You do pray the sunnahs, but after the Isha namaz. Okay, so after you pray your Maghrib, 3 rakat, then you don't pray your 2 rakat Maghrib sunnah, or if you want to pray your awwabin, you don't do that. You then straight away pray your Isha. If you are Musafi, you pray 2 rakat. If you are not a Musafi, you pray 4. Then afterwards, you then pray your 2 rakat Maghrib sunnah. If you want to pray your 2 rakat Isha sunnah, your 3 rakat witr, you will be done afterwards. It then goes on to say you should collect your pebbles here. Okay, so in Muzdalifah, you don't have to, but it's a good time, good place to collect the pebbles. Why do we need to collect pebbles? Because for the next day we'll be pelting the jamarat and the big jamarat. So we collect the pebbles there, and then he goes and says, then you sleep until Fajr. So you then stay there, you sleep in that particular, you spend the night, and you pray your Fajr there, and then he goes and says, pray Fajr at the beginning time. Okay, normally, when it's not in Hajj and so on, normally when we're in the UK or home, we tend to pray our Fajr a bit later on. Later on meaning that not later on in terms of it becomes qaza, but what I mean is later on in terms of the time. But in Muzdalifah, as soon as Fajr time starts, so just say Fajr was to start at 5:30 in the morning, you pray bang on 5:30 in the morning, 5:35, 5:40, istara, you just pray your Fajr straight away. You don't wait until 1 hour afterwards anything. You should try to pray your Fajr straight away on that particular day. Now this takes me on to the next day, which is the 10th of Zulhijjah. So everybody else around the world, they'll be celebrating the Eid on this particular day. But the Hujjaj, the pilgrims, during this particular day, they have a very, very busy day. Because during this day, they have to do 4 things. And the 4 things are mentioned on the side, but we're going to look at them individually. Now what happens is that when you wake up, you pray your Fajr in Muzdalifah. So you then make your way, after you pray your Fajr, you then make your way towards Mina. 10th of Zulhijjah, you then make your way towards Mina. Now you'll come to Mina, and on this day you have to do the 4 things. And what are the 4 things? Number 1, you stone the Jamra Aqaba. Jamra Aqaba means what we call the big shaitan. So you stone that on firstly. Then you sacrifice the animal. You do Qurbani. Remember Qurbani for those who are doing Hajj Tamattu and Hajj Kiran. Number 3, you then shave your head, you then trim your hair, then you release from your Hajj Ihram. And lastly, number 4, you go to Makkah, because you remember you're in Mina, so it's around 3 miles away from Makkah. You then go to Makkah and you perform your Tawaf Ziyarat, which is, by the way, first, and you do the Sa'i, which is the running between Safa and Marwa, and then at night time you then come back towards Mina. So these are the 4 things which you have to do. Okay. Now, also this is important as well. In the Hanafi fiqh, this order is wajib. Then 3. Jamra Aqaba first, like you stone that. Sacrificing animal, number 2. And number 3, shave or trimming your hair. This tartib is wajib in the Hanafi fiqh. And it says that if this order is broken, dam will become wajib. And the reason why I'm stressing on this point is that because obviously when you go there, in Makkah and so on, they follow another madhab, another school of thought. So they will give you books, little books in English, in Urdu, where they tell you how to perform the Hajj. Now obviously when it comes to this, they will say that, oh, you don't have to do this in order. So many of our people who are actually following the Hanafi fiqh, they think, okay, in this book it says you don't have to follow it. So what they do is that, they'll shave their head off first, then trim their hair first, then they stone the Jamra Aqaba. They do it in different order. However, it's very strict, this particular ruling in the Hanafi, and it says that you have to do it, otherwise a dam will become obligatory and wajib. Okay, now the next ruling here is with regards to Jamra Aqaba. The next slide afterwards gives us a picture of how it is. Now, on the 10th of Dhul-Hijjah, the first thing you do is that you pelt the big Jamra. And it's mentioned here that you'll use small pebbles or small stones. So you don't use any big massive rock. You don't use umbrellas. Some people throw umbrellas. Some people get their sandals and start hitting the Jamra. So these are all incorrect and so on. So you just use small pebbles and you do it. And it says that when you are throwing each stone, you should recite takbir. So when you are pelting the Jamrat, say Allahu Akbar for each stone. Number 3, the third bullet point is that you cease reciting talbiyah when throwing the last stone. Meaning, when you put on your ihram for your Hajj, whenever you had opportunity, you were reciting the talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik. But as soon as you throw it's got the last stone. It should be actually the first stone, actually. Probably mistake. It should be here, not last stone, the first stone. So when you, as soon as you throw the first stone, and that's it, you will now stop reciting the talbiyah. And then he goes on to say that this particular stoning of the Jamra Aqaba, it cannot be performed before sunrise. Meaning that it has to be done after sunrise. Some people, what they do is that they go straight away from Muzdalifah to Mina and they start throwing stoning the Jamra. You can't do that. You have to wait after sunrise and then you will do this. Okay, now this is a picture of the Jamra Aqaba. This picture was taken around 3-4 years ago, but as far as I know, it's kind of changed. And as you can see here, that this is the Jamra. These are the things which you are pelting. So what you do is that you will go around, and then from this point you will then throw the stones or the pebbles, and you have to make sure that the stone or the pebble hits either the big massive rock which you can see, or the very least it goes inside this particular circle. If you can't hit the stone, you say you're a bit far away, but as long as it goes inside the pit which is around or the border which is around the big massive rock, then that would be sufficient. Again, these are just various pictures. It then goes on to say that after you've done your Ramyu Jamara Aqaba, you then do the next part, which is slaughtering an animal. And as I said before, that this Qurbani is wajib for those who are doing Tamattu Hajj or Kiran Hajj. And it says that you slaughter your animal in any part of Mina or Makkah. And there's some rulings here that 7 people may share in 1 camel or 1 cow. Again, this is a simple ruling. So either you could sacrifice 1 sheep or 1 goat, or if there's like 7 members, say, of 1 family going, so what they could do, they could chip in and they buy 1 camel or 1 cow, and they sacrifice, then that would be sufficient. As I mentioned, this side it mentions that Rami must be done before you sacrifice, and you will only shave or trim your hair once your sacrifice has been done. Because tartib in order is wajib. So after you've done the sacrifice, or if you are going in a group and other people doing on behalf of the group, so when you get the green light and the information that the sacrifice has been done, only then you will shave and you trim your hair. Now in this particular slide it tells us that once you have shaved or trimmed your hair, you are now out of ihram. Okay, so after you've shaved your hair, that's it. You're now released from your ihram of Hajj. So fragrance, khushbu, these kind of things are now lawful and permissible. Qameez, wearing a shirt, these kind of things are all allowed. Your trousers, everything is allowed. It mentions here that everything is halal except one thing, and that is any kind of intimacy with your wife. That is still haram. When does that become halal? That becomes halal after you've done your tawaf ziyarat. Because the 4th thing which you will do on that day will be tawaf ziyarat. Yeah? So after you've done that, only then, intimacy with your wife will be lawful and permissible. Which takes me on to the next point here regarding the tawaf ziyarah. So remember, you've done everything, like you've done the sacrifice in Mina. Some people, they trim and shave their hair in Mina. So you then make a way towards Makkah. So from Mina, some people will either get a coach, bus, they'll make their way towards Mina. Some will actually walk it towards Mina. Now when they go from Mina to Makkah, now when they now make the way towards Makkah, they will perform Tawaf al-Ziyarah in the same way as you perform Tawaf al-Umrah. Meaning, what you बताया था Tawaf al-Umrah में exactly the same. You start from, Hajj Aswad, Blackstone, you do the Istilam, 7 rounds, وغير ذلك. Try to pray 2 rakats behind the Maqam Ibrahim, and thereafterwards, like I mentioned before, you do the sa'i. Then you do sa'i between Safa and Marwa, climb up, exactly as I explained before, climb up Mount Safa, face towards the Qibla, Baytullah, do dua, thereafterwards make your way down towards Marwa, the green light again, you then run between that particular area. Afterwards you drink from the Zamzam well, and then you make your way back towards Mina. It's very important because a lot of people, what they do is that they feel tired after spending the night. What they do, they go back to the hotels in Makkah and the nice 4-star, 5-star hotels, and they go to sleep there. Totally against the Sunnah. The Sunnah is that after you've done that, you then make your way towards back to Mina. Okay, and you spend the night, which will be the night of the 10th, 11th, and 12th. You're going to stay extra. Okay, so stay in Mina for the days of Tashriq and their night. It is preferable to stay in Mina during these days than going to Makkah. This is the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, after you spend the night on the 10th of Zulhijjah, then you go the next day, which is the 11th of Zulhijjah. Now, on the 11th of Zulhijjah, there's one ritual to do, and that is that you have to now pelt the Jamarat. But you, instead of doing the big one, the Jamarat Aqba, which we did on the 10th of Zulhijjah, you do Rami of all 3 of them, starting from the small, middle, and the big one. And it's written here in the white caption at the bottom that the times are from Zawal. Zawal meaning basically just before the Zohar time, or just at Zohar time. That's when the time of Rami starts. Okay? Remember, on the 10th of Zulhijjah, it started after sunrise. Yani Suraj ke tulu hone ke baad. On the 11th and the 12th, it starts from the Zawal. Okay? It starts from, like say, Zohar time, 12:30, 1 o'clock, around that particular time, depending on what time Zawal is. That's when the time of Rami will start. And now this is important. Now on the 12th, after you done Rami on the 12th, as you know, you've got option, you've got a choice. Either if you want, you can stay back another day in Mina, so that will be your 13th, and then you do your Rami on the 13th, and then your Hajj completely finishes. Or if you want, then you can go back towards Makkah. Okay, so you got a choice. Now that's why it's written at the bottom that Rami time for the 13th is from Zawal until sunset. So even though that day is optional, again, the time for Rami on that particular day starts from Zawal time. Okay, then he says that on the 11th, 12th and 13th, if you do decide to stay on the 13th, you'll stone the 3 Jamarat each with 7 pebbles in each of those days after noon or after Zawal. So again, for each Jamarat you have to do 7 pebbles. After the first and the second Jamarat, move forward and stand facing the Qibla, making dua while raising your hand. There is no dua after the last Jamarat. Again, this is another sunnah of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. After you would do Rami at the first Jamarat, he would then move to the side. He will face towards the Qibla, he raise his hands and he will do dua. Again, these are places where dua is accepted. He will do the exactly same for the second Jamarat. But on the third Jamarat, as soon as he would pelt that, then he would leave straight away. Okay, now the last main ritual here is something which is known as Tawaf al-Wida, the farewell Tawaf. Now this farewell Tawaf is wajib. Okay, wajib meaning that obligatory to do, otherwise you will have to give a dam. Now according to the Hanafi fiqh, the ruling regarding this Tawaf is that it's preferable and mustahab that the last thing you do is the Tawaf al-Wida. Like before you leave Makkah, सबसे आखिरी चीज you should do is the Tawaf al-Wida and then you leave Makkah. However, if somebody did do the Tawaf al-Wida and then he stayed back in Makkah for say another few hours, 5-6 hours, for another couple of prayers, and then he left, then that is also jaiz as well. That's also permissible. The other schools of thought are quite strict. They said, no, the very, very last thing you should do before you leave Makkah is the Tawaf al-Wida. Now as you can see that this Tawaf is wajib, and he goes on to say that, however, if women are in their haze or in their period, they can miss this particular Tawaf. They can't miss their Tawaf in Ziyarah because that's first. And that's important that if they, they have to, do that, they have to stay, you have to wait until they become clean and park and pure, then they do the Tawaf in Ziyarah. However, if they come into their menses while this Tawaf is going on, then they can miss it out, and there is no dam and there is no penalty for doing this, for missing this Tawaf out for women who are in their periods, in their haze. However, obviously, men without any reason, or even women who were clean and park and they missed this particular Tawaf out, then obviously they will have to give a penalty and dam for missing it out. So that concludes the presentation. May Allah gives the tawfiq to act on what was said. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillah.